Okay, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Present.
Alderwoman Davis,
Present.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Present.
Alderman Coder,
Here.
Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Boyd, Chairman Rhodey,
Present.
Alderwoman Spencer.
She's muted. It looks. Alderwoman Spencer, I believe you're muted.
Yeah, present.
Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Boyd. 6 present, you have quorum.
All right. Before we take up the order of business, a couple apologies are in order. I am prone to being very absent-minded at these meetings. We have speakers lists, and occasionally not more frequently than occasionally. Frequently, I miss or forget to reference that. And at our last meeting, the Alderwoman from the 4th Ward had a board bill before us, and we evidently had a constituent or a citizen who waited through the whole meeting to speak to the board bill, and I was negligent in recognizing her. So we have corresponded. I have apologized to her via email, but it was her name was Julia Allen, and I want to make a record publicly of apologizing to her. It is we have these meetings that are during the daytime, and it is frequently a hardship for people to take time off to do these and to speak at them, and to not provide Miss Allen an opportunity to speak at the last meeting is a real oversight on my part. So I wanted to apologize to her. We had communicated subsequent to the meeting, and I believe she was satisfied. I was going to, the bill passed out of committee, so it was kind of a moot issue at this point, but I had offered to provide her an opportunity to speak at this meeting. And through our correspondence, I believe she had contacted her alderman person whose ward she lives in, and I think she was satisfied with that. But I want to apologize, and certainly if I oversee or miss anybody, please bring it to my attention. There is nothing deliberate in that. We want to go to great lengths to provide everybody an opportunity to speak at our meetings here. Additionally, we initially had a meeting scheduled for last week. I had received a request from the president to have a meeting this week for a bill that was introduced, and there was some miscommunication, and Alderwoman Howard had a bill before our committee that was actually noticed by zoning, so they went out and they did all of that work and everything. And so I owe an apology to the zoning department and Alderwoman Howard as well. It was a real oversight, and I want to make sure that we recognize the hard work of the people up in the zoning department who've gone out and done all that. So something that I wanted to go ahead and at least make sure that we recognize their hard work, and wanted to apologize. With regard to speakers, I just learned something new after all these years. The clerk has advised me that we should be reading the rules for speaking at each of the committee meetings before or at the time of the committee. And I want to read those now, and then I guess we ought to go ahead and get back to our agenda here. And then I'll have a couple more comments, and then we can bring up the board bills. So the rules for speaking are after, and we're supposed to read these at each meeting, and I've never done this. After the presentation of a bill at any public hearing, the proponents and opponents shall be heard. Alternatively, all persons who wish to testify at a public hearing shall sign a list, which shall be made available by the chairman of the committee at least 1/2 hour before the announced time of the hearing. The initial presentation of any witness shall be no longer than 5 minutes, except with the permission of the committee chairman, but any witness may respond to questions by members of the committee for an additional period of time to be determined by the committee chairman. and any witness may submit written testimony to the committee at any time prior to the conclusion of the hearing on the bill. So we had some written testimony, which I believe has been shared with the committee members. And we have some slightly altered rules for signing up as a result of the Zoom, but there is a relatively extensive list of speakers today that are going to be available and who have signed up for several of the board bills. So if I miss anyone, please bring it to my attention. And I believe those have all been shared by everybody. So with that out of the way, we've done our roll call. Excused Alderman. I have not, I see Alderman Boyd, Alderwoman Boyd, and Alderman Oldenburg has joined us. So I believe that we are all present at this point. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
That is correct.
Okay. Approval of the minutes from the Wednesday, November 18th meeting. Chair will recognize.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of the minutes dated November 18th, 2020.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Coder,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Alderwoman Spencer, you're muted again, I believe.
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Chairman Rhodey.
Aye.
8 aye votes.
Okay, before we take up the board bills, just kind of looking forward, this is our last meeting of this calendar year. And as it stands right now, we are scheduled to meet on, I believe it's January the 13th of next year. That is going to be a long meeting. So you might get that on your calendar now. And it may be one of those things where we're going to be in the meeting till 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. So please block that date out. We may meet one other time, and I'd like to kind of share with you just a couple minutes. I think most of you are aware, I announced a couple weeks ago, I won't be running again in March or April. And so the 19th, or excuse me, January the 13th is probably our last scheduled meeting. We might have one meeting after that, and the intent would be to wrap up some of the loose ends. It's been really have enjoyed being chairman of the committee, and we've had just some great people on the committee. Been very, very fortunate, and just kind of want to walk through. And we got a couple loose ends, and may have a presentation sometime next year that will kind of hopefully wrap these up and kind of hand some of these things that we've been working on off to the next chairperson to kind of put everything that we've been doing in perspective. I always like to start out with our mission or our vision statement. And we had considered the goal of our committee was to facilitate urban development, to maintain the economic viability of our city and improve the economic well-being of our residents. And then to do that, we use planning and zoning to optimize our development opportunities, and that can be derived from our unique transportation, location, institution, and other community attributes, use federal, state, and local economic incentives and programs to adjust for inefficiencies and weakness in our tax to service model, and allocate our community block grant funds to ensure decent, affordable housing, to provide services to the most vulnerable in our communities, and to create jobs through expansion and retention of businesses. And I'd like to kind of talk about just a couple minutes about what we've done and how we've tried to implement that vision or mission. We began focused on the economic viability of the city. We started out initially doing the study on economic incentives. And I think we have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, hired some very good people. And I think within the region, we probably have a better concept and framework on how the city makes money on these projects. How the city makes money gets very, very confusing because of our taxes and tracking them all. But I believe we've done a very good job on that. And then we rolled into the idea of developing a business plan, and we've just recently completed that. And both of those are really focused on economic viability. If we do not have money for the city, we can't provide the vital services. And what I think is important for us to remember is how much different we are today than what we were 1950s. You know, in the 1950s, we represented about 60% of the region's population. You know, today we represent maybe 10 or 12%. And you know, when you have a 60% market share, you can go ahead and do things like raise prices and charge what you want in form of taxes, and you don't have to be terribly creative about it. But that's not our situation today. The world is so much more competitive that we need to really be thinking about, you know, not just how much we charge in taxes, but you know, how we use that to hone in on certain industries or certain market niches that we have a unique advantage on. And I think much of the success of Cortex was our ability to identify that. And it's our hope that the business plan will do that as well. So that was kind of our start. There's lots more that can be done in that area. But as we were wanting to go through the incentives, we had a lot of discussion about community benefit agreements, which is nothing more than how do we go ahead and take some of that new economic activity and use it for the benefit of our residents. And I was very slow, or I didn't even take up the bills on community benefit agreements. There's a lot of interest, I think, in perhaps doing something in affordable housing. And rather than start a whole new program, I hope people have appreciated that we're trying to make these decisions based on data-driven decision-making as opposed to just doing these things by the seat of our pants. And I really wanted to slow down, and the pandemic is, and understand affordable housing much better and some of the issues. I was very fortunate in that my time down here, I probably sponsored more economic development legislation and have had probably more success with economic development because of the unique institutions in my ward that have helped support that. And we've had a lot of housing done. I was mostly, as an alderman, focused on doing just stabilizing the market and reversing the downward trend in values so that we could restore market values and get back to the point where development began occurring organically because prices are going back up. Our challenge is lack of demand in the city. We have so many people leaving. Our development costs are high, and our market values are low. And we are, if we don't have higher market values, we end up having to use more incentives. If we get higher market values, we have people, concerned about affordability and housing. So it's a kind of a two-edged sword. And understanding that trade-off, that when we have increased demand and people are moving back into the city, the concerns over gentrification, and we need to better understand that. And that's why we wanted to slow down. We have the study done. We've had Steve Akery come in, who's doing that with RISE. We expect to have that done in February. So our hope would be that we may bring people back to take a look at that. But I think there's a lot of stuff in there that we might be able to do that wouldn't be terribly expensive. The other thing was, and I guess this is my personal view, is I really believe that if we're going to do something, our concern isn't, what we're wanting to do is actually improve people's lives, and it's maybe not just about providing less expensive housing. If we can go ahead and think about what the Black Caucus has done over the years, their point of negotiation in most of these development deals was creating opportunity for their community. And they've worked very hard to create, workforce development programs and things like that, so that, their constituents could join, could assimilate into the economic mainstream and wouldn't need affordable housing, they would have the opportunity of jobs so that they could have market rate housing. And so the idea that we should just focus exclusively on affordable housing, I'm not sure if that's, necessarily the best. Our goal is to improve the quality of someone's overall well-being, and not necessarily to spend money on housing. And I believe one of the real opportunities going forward is going to be transportation. And I think if you look at how households spend their money, they spend as much money on not as much, but transportation is a very significant component of most household expenditures. And the fact that St. Louis hasn't developed a very robust means of shared transportation, I think creates a real opportunity if we can do that strategically. And I'll be introducing, I've been working with Scott Ogilvy, our former colleague, and the folks over at SLDC, and hopefully we get back in January. I've been speaking with both Alderman Boyd, who chairs our Streets Committee, and Alderwoman Davis, who chairs our Transportation Committee. I've shared information with them. Alderman Kodor, who's on our committee, who should be very concerned about transportation costs as it relates to getting people to, all the jobs that are at downtown and the high cost of parking. So they're aware of that, and I'm starting to involve Alderman Oldenburg because of his background in affordable housing. So I hope to be able to hand some of this stuff off. But next year, I'll be introducing a resolution that'll we believe we have it worked out where we can get a study done, a mobility study done for the city that might result in some new policies that if we implement them, we can begin starting to share and save people the cost of transportation. In my humble opinion, much of our problem is in some of our most distressed neighborhood, values are so low that people are having trouble getting financing. If you have a home value that is very, very low, and you have a roof goes out and the roof costs more than the house is worth, you're going to have a whole cycle of disinvestment. And we need to begin thinking about how to increase the values of those homes. And rather than providing subsidy to bring down the cost lower, I think if we subsidize transportation, it will actually free up household money so that they can begin investing, so people can begin investing in appreciating assets rather than in automobiles. But that's a very, complicated, and it's going to involve a number of strategies. So we're hopeful. Scott has taken a look at what some other cities have done. We hope when we come back, we can bring that up. And I hope that we can hand that off so that, the members of the committee will be here next year, will not miss a step as we go forward. So long-winded, but sorry for my long-winded preamble. But I wanted to give us a little preview. You'll probably hear the same thing again next year, but I wanted to give you at least a little prelude of what we're trying to do. So without any further ado, we'll go to the committees, the bills. We usually take up people who are not on the committee first. It looks like Alderman Kodor is going to handle President Reed's bill. Is that correct, Alderman, from the 7th?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead in the order of the bills as presented then. That would mean that the first bill up is Alderman Boyd. Alderman, Board Bill number 170.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Board Bill 170 is a tax abatement bill over in the I-70 industrial area. And I'm going to have Zach do the presentation. And we do have representatives from the owners group, Dave Rossaman, who has signed up to speak as well. So with that, Zach, can you go ahead and take it from here? You're muted.
This one's a little bit different. Mark Spikerman will be talking over about this one. And
okay.
Doug Rasmussen's also here to speak on it.
Hi, my name is Mark Spikerman. I'm an attorney at Gilmore and Bell, and I represent the city and SLDC as outside counsel on certain economic development projects, including this one. We call these projects Chapter 100 projects. Chapter 100 is the industrial development chapter in the Missouri statutes. We've done, as the city has done, Chapter 100 projects over the last few years for Square, Anheuser-Busch, Huva Pharma. We do these projects as Chapter 100 projects for various reasons. Chapter 100 provides almost the most flexibility we can do, and it doesn't require a blight finding. It's more of an industrial development jobs program. And when I talk about flexibility, the reason why we are using it here is rather than saying this is a 50% abatement or a 60% abatement for 10 years, we've actually imposed a firm set schedule of payments in lieu of taxes, ranging from $93,000 starting next year up to $176,000 in year 10. That is an increase over what the properties is generated today, although, and Doug can speak to the actual plans later, a new owner is going to buy that building. That price is going to be substantially higher than what the building is currently assessed for. So all parties expect that, but for this tax abatement, the assessed value of the building would go up significantly. And as a result, to make the project work, to keep that building viable, we're going to use Chapter 100. We're going to abate those future taxes and impose payments in lieu of taxes at a set firm number every year for the next 10 years.
Okay, why don't we, are you finished, Mark?
Yeah.
Okay, Doug, why don't you talk to us about, the project, the amount of jobs it will produce, and then we'll, if the chairman would allow, then the committee can ask you guys collectively about the presentation.
That's great, Alderman. Appreciate that. Good morning, committee. My name is Doug Rasmussen. I own and run a firm called Steadfast City Economic and Community Partners. We're based in the city of St. Louis. As Mark mentioned, this is a Chapter 100 tax abatement. Our client is a new owner to the property that's actually based in St. Paul, Minnesota. So it's out of town money that would be coming in to purchase this property and redevelop it. In total, it's a $6.7 million capital investment, and there's a retention and expansion of 261 jobs. So there's two businesses in there currently who already would remain in the space and continue to grow in the space. And one's called First Choice Delivery. They have about 66,000 feet. It's the whole building's 148,000. They have 225 jobs. St. Louis Freight Solutions, which is about 40,000 feet with 11 jobs. And those both pay about $33,000 a year. And then a new business that would be coming to the space is called Top Shop. They're currently not in the city, and they would add 25 net new jobs at about 41,000 a year. So the abatement schedule that Mark mentioned is critical to keeping some certainty and costs around the taxes that certainly help those businesses continue to occupy and the new business to expand. And overall, we feel like it's a very positive project for the area. As Mark mentioned, there is the new purchase price and the investment would increase the assessed value, market value and assessed value significantly. And with the proposed abatement, actually, we will be making more tax payments than the building will collect this year. So we're actually taking into account the new purchase and the improvements and then setting the abatement from that number.
Doug, can you talk a little bit about some of the capital improvement, that 6.7 million?
Yep. So there's a acquisition is about 5.8 of that, and then the initial improvements beyond that will be basically a redo of the parking lot. There's a lot of interior work that needs to be done in terms of the systems and things like that. The building is a existing building, but it's one that is a little bit worn out, I guess, from lack of a better way of saying it. So there's it needs a kind of a complete refresh, and certainly probably the biggest expense of that initial expense is the truck lot and the dock area, which the concrete and whatnot does need to be redone within the first year or two of the new ownership.
Thank you. And just to give kind of a sense of geography, this is kind of the complex was the old GM plant, back in the day. So it's over in that particular area, the part of the 22nd Ward, right off basically Highway 70 and Union. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's pretty much the presentation.
Did we do? Did they do a financial workup on this as well then, or?
Jonathan?
Yes, I know John Ferry. I see him in the audience. I don't know, John, if you want to weigh in on that a little bit.
Yes, we did a financial analysis on this project. I'm happy to go through it if you'd like. I can share my screen as well if you guys don't have that in front of you.
Why don't we just take a couple minutes and do that, and then we'll go through the committee then.
Okay. You're not seeing the right thing, are you? Can you see are you seeing my spreadsheet, or are you seeing something else at the moment?
I see the spreadsheet with, the graph on top left corner.
Okay. Okay. So, so this project, so there's a couple of things about it. One is, as Doug has mentioned, the vast majority of this new investment is the purchase price. And I think the total amount of new dollars going into improving the property is, at least as of whenever we ran this analysis, was only around $360,000. Under normal circumstances, that's not the type of project that we would generally consider for tax incentives. The reason why this is considered at all was because of its location and because of the argument, which we find to have some credibility, that it's important to the tenants. This tax abatement is going to be passed directly along to the tenants. That's why you can see in the rate of return to the developer or the investor, it does not change with the incentive. The benefit is going straight to those existing companies and the new company that would be coming in. The other reason that this one is a little bit unusual is because it was just on tax abatement. We don't normally issue tax abatement right after it had come off. It came off of tax abatement last year, which means that the the taxable value has not really caught up yet to its market value. So that's another caveat, something that Doug can attest that we went back and forth on quite a bit, and was something that we really debated internally, but ultimately came to the conclusion that it was worth supporting this because it does score well in terms of the amount of revenue relative to what's being generated in the area around it. So as you can see, the area around it is only generating about 26 cents of tax per square foot of land area, whereas this project will generate about 46 cents. And that gives it the score of 4.25 out of 5. The amount of revenue the city would generate over 10 years is about $220,000 above the existing base. and 557,000 over 20 years. Similarly, the school district would increase by 152,000 over the first 10 years and 603,000 over a 20-year span. And then below that, you can see how this compares to the neighborhood average, where it exceeds it by about $500,000, a little over $500,000 over 10 years to the city, and almost 3 times that over a 20-year span. The value of the incentive is estimated at $365,000 over the 10-year period, which is about 5.9% of total project costs. The sources and uses are listed over on the right. As you can see, it is mostly an acquisition investment. The amount of the abatement essentially is set as a fixed pilot schedule, and it equates to essentially a 95% abatement for the first 2 years, then 75% for the subsequent 2 years, then 55% for 2 years, 35% for 2 years, and 15% for the final 2 years, so that it gradually makes its way back to a normal market level over that period. So I'm happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Jonathan, just real quickly, did I hear somebody say that the purchase, the abatement will not kick, the taxes will be adjusted to the purchase price, and then only the increase in value as a result of the improvements, or is that the only portion that's being abated? Is that correct? Did I understand that?
No, that's not correct. So that was a big part of the reason for the internal debate, because the way that the Chapter 100 is being structured, it would abate the existing improvements as well, not just the new ones. So so it wouldn't lower what's being paid today, but it would prevent those from increasing based on their natural market appreciation.
Oh, and the primary motivation was on the additional, job retention here. Is that correct then, or is that what's?
Yeah,
That's
it was
correct.
It was to help the tenants with the job creation, and it was just because of the location where it's at, being that it's in a part of the city that needs as much support as we can provide.
Did I hear that correctly? The one tenant's going to have 261 new jobs. Is that correct?
Chairman, those are existing jobs, and then the new tenant would have 25 new jobs.
Okay. Okay. So those. Okay. Alderman from the 22nd. I haven't been up to. I remember what a blow it was for the GM plant when it closed up there. It had a great legacy for many years. It produced the Corvette Stingray, and then closed. And of course, we lost, thousands of jobs. And so many of them, went to Wentzville. And of course, it hurt the whole neighborhood up there after that closed. So many, people tend to live close to where they work at, and when they moved all those jobs. And then I remember, not Bob Clark, but his dad bought that complex up there years ago. And then they started, how many jobs are up there now? I mean, they did a pretty good job of bringing new jobs in, haven't they?
It's been, I'm not sure how many totalers in the complex. I know Mike Clark with Clark Properties is managing it, the son. And it's had some challenges over the years. So anytime we can, get a new tenant in, it's been a long time. It's been probably about 10 years since there's been a new tenant in that complex.
Okay.
I am familiar with Choice One Carrier. They're a good tenant over there. They've been there for quite some time. But we're trying to do whatever we can to, make it a viable site. Mike Clark and I have had a lot of discussions on, different things the city can do to kind of bolster that location and drive more business there. But it's been pretty stagnant overall.
Okay. Well, it's certainly really devastating for the community up there when that Corvette plant closed. Why don't we go ahead and open it up to the committee? Alderwoman Davis, do you have any questions for Alderman Boyd or any of the other speakers? Oh, I'm sorry. Right away I screwed up. Let's see. We have speakers. Okay, Doug spoke and Mark declined to speak. So I think we got all the speakers covered. Now we can go through committee members. Alderwoman Davis.
No questions, sir. Thank you.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
No question.
Alderman Kodar.
No questions, Mr. Chairman. I'll be abstaining on this. My firm represents one of the current tenants and previous owners of the building.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I don't have any questions at this time.
Alderman Oldenburg.
No questions.
Alderwoman Boyd.
No questions, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Hearing no other questions, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move for approval of Board Bill 170 with a due pass recommendation.
Second.
There was a second. I'm not sure I understood. Heard who the second was from.
That was me, Alderwoman Hubbard.
Oh, thank you, Alderwoman. I'm sorry, I couldn't. So it's been moved by the Alderman from the 22nd, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 5th. Hearing no other discussion, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard,
Aye.
Alderman Coder,
Abstain.
Alderwoman Spencer,
Aye.
Alderman Oldenburg,
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd,
Aye.
Chairman Rhodey.
Aye.
7 aye votes and 1 abstain.
Okay, by your vote, we have passed out of committee Board Bill number 170. Next up, Board Bill number 178, Alderwoman Hubbard.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I'm here on behalf of Board Bill 178. If it seems like we've gone through this before, we have. Basically what Board Bill 178 does is that it authorizes the execution of a First Amendment to the redevelopment agreement between the city and Alterra Jefferson Arms LLC. The original agreement was passed in February of 2017. So basically what this will do is it'll amend the definition of the redevelopment project to anticipate future development of hotel uses. It provides for the commencement of the construction of the work no later than June 1st, 2022, and the completion of the work no later than June 1st, 2025. It requires the developer to comply with our MBE, WBE ordinances, and it also requires the developer to pay all outstanding property taxes with the full execution of redevelopment agreement and First Amendment. This is a project that was definitely near and dear to my community and my ward. It offers many jobs and resources for the community. For some time, there had been delays. There was a lot of contention regarding the project, but the developer, along with other community partners, have went above and beyond to make this happen for the city. It's definitely a project that we all have put a lot of time and effort into. And I would ask for your favorable support. Like I said, there have been some delays, but things are moving again. And I think that this is something that we all would like to see happen in the city of St. Louis and especially downtown. There is a companion bill to this, but it will be heard in Ways and Means. And we have some people on that will definitely answer any additional questions along with myself if anybody has any questions. But I think this is familiar to everybody. Like I said, we first revisited this project maybe 3 years ago now, and we're just simply trying to move it forward and do what's in the best interest of the city in doing so. And that's all I have. And I'll take questions. And we have Dave Sweeney on and some other members from the development group that can answer any questions that anyone may have.
Okay, so we have a variety of speakers that have signed up for this. Just for my own edification, are they David Sweeney, who and David Richardson, I presume, are not so much speaking forward, but available to answer questions. Is that correct, or did they?
That's correct.
And then the same with Mark Spikerman. Is that correct? And forgive me, I'm terrible at name. Emery Tarazi, is that?
Correct. Mike Sarmsaki and Emery Tarazi from Alterra.
Could you say that again, please?
Mike Sarmsaki
Okay.
and Emery Tarazi from Alterra.
Okay, and you're here to answer questions as well. Is that correct then?
Correct.
Okay, and then Jose Quezada?
Yeah, he's not attending this morning.
Okay. And then Katie Jenner is here to answer questions as well, then is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I think that's all of it. Oh, and Dave Sweeney, I guess. Yeah, Dave's on the list here. Okay. So this is amending this is amending some legislation we previously passed. Is that correct? And what exactly I'm sorry, I should have been listening a little closer, Alderman. We're amending an existing piece of legislation that will extend the deadline. Is that correct for starting, or what all? Could somebody kind of explain what we're doing again? I should have been listening a little closer.
Sure. Dave, would you like to handle it, or I can answer these questions? That's correct. It amends the definition of redevelopment project to anticipate the future development of hotel uses. It provides for the commencement of the construction of the work no later than June 1st, 2022, and the completion of the work no later than June 1st, 2025. Basically, what it does is it extends the dates. I believe because there was some delay in the project, we had to revisit the agreement to make sure that we're still within the parameters of the original agreement. And it's an extension, basically, is what it is.
Okay, so all we're doing is extending the deadline for starting. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I presume, has the financial underwriting changed at all? Should we, who has that? Did you do that, Jonathan, or has any of the financials changed at all?
There hasn't been any change to the financials since this was originally presented, at least as far as our analysis goes.
Okay. Well, why don't we open it up to committee members then? And then if somebody wants to see that, is it available, Jonathan?
I could try and pull it up on the old one from a few years ago. I can try and pull it up on my computer and share it if you guys would like to see it.
Well, as you do that, we'll begin going through the committee then, and we'll see if there's any questions. If somebody wants to see that, we want to make sure that it's made available for them. Alderman Boyd, do you have any questions or?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just have some comments. Being familiar with that location, and it's the Jefferson Arms building has been sitting relatively idle for quite some time now, and it's almost looking like probably not almost, it's kind of an eyesore on the way down, eyesore downtown. I'm familiar with the project when it first came before us several years ago. Was really excited that development would occur soon. Unfortunately, as the Alderwoman said, there was some issues that need to be worked through. It seems that those issues have, resolved themselves. I can only imagine the cost of the development has probably gone up, after 2 or 3 years. And if we're not changing any of the incentives. I think I just want to applaud the developer for staying with it and wanting to move forward, you know, knowing that the cost of this development have gone up. So I applaud the developer with that. And I certainly applaud my colleague from the Fifth Ward, who's unfortunately oftentimes taking a lot of political blows for wanting, you know, reinvestment in her community and trying to create jobs for struggling neighborhoods. And of course, you know, downtown is not like right in the center, you know, of the Fifth Ward, but certainly her constituents, you know, will see job opportunities with the construction that goes on and full-time jobs that will create, and, you know, people coming back and living downtown. I think it's a good project. I'm definitely in full support of the Alderman from the Fifth Ward, and I don't really know the developers, but again, I applaud them for their stick-to-itiveness with this project, and I wish them well. Thank you.
Alderwoman Davis, any questions?
I don't know if I necessarily, yes, I do have one question, then I have a comment. My question to the Alderwoman of the Fifth is, I do know that there was some controversy dealing with one of the unions, and I'm making an assumption nobody's on here against the extension. All that has been resolved.
Yes, it has, and I spoke to that when I spoke of other community partners. Actually, the total project will be 100% union, and so that's huge for our community. And so that was something that I was definitely proud of, and something that definitely made me continue to give this project the green light in my community, because the workforce side of it is that's the most important side of it to me, and to know that they will be using local workforce and they are working hand in hand with the unions. That's a win for the entire city. So thank you again for bringing that up, Alderwoman. So that is definitely a move in the right direction. I thank the developer for all of his hard work and willingness on this side of it.
Well, I do know a project like that. As a matter of fact, I know of the project. We've had, I think, 3 different developers. I was involved with the company that took the first stab at that building about 20 years ago. It is a huge project, and to pull all of it together and make everybody happy is very difficult, not even trying to deal with the financing side of it. So we have come a long way. For those who are in ownership, please understand that we have these controversies in order to make sure that we have fairness, to make sure that the best opportunities are made available to our constituents, that the city of St. Louis receives the best benefit in the end. And as most people know, there's always the question about if we're giving any incentive, how it might be hurting some taxing district. But in order for us to bring our city back, we're going to have to create new development, and sometimes that requires incentive. But at the end, it also is like putting money in the bank. So we know that any taxing district can continue to grow versus standing still. So I do appreciate I know you went through a lot of meetings, and I think a lot of anger to get this to where we are, but I'm looking forward to seeing the finished product. Thank you.
We're going to continue going through with the committee members, but I see that Jonathan has the financials up. Well, why don't we see if somebody wants to hear from them? If they do, we'll stop and we'll let Jonathan review those. I also note that we have a number of members of the Board of Aldermen who are not on the committee that are with us today, and I don't know how good we are at providing them an opportunity to let us know that they want to talk or not. If they are interested, well, I'll try to catch them. Feel free to email me, but otherwise we'll start flagging us down here in a couple seconds or a few minutes when we get through the rest of the committee members. If you're not on the committee and you want to have some questions, we'll recognize you. Alderman Kotar is up next. Do you have any questions, Alderman?
Yeah, thanks, Chairman, members of the committee. I understand that the purpose of this bill is to simply, we're extending the start and completion date for this project. I could probably use a refresher. I mean, I remember voting on this and hearing about it years ago. And I think at the time, the plan was sort of a mix of apartments and a hotel concept. I'd like to hear from the developer as to sort of what's the scope of the project now, years later. I mean, what is this going to look like?
Okay, that's all we needed. We'll, why don't we go ahead and stop for a second? Jonathan, walk through the numbers with us, and then we'll recognize the developer. Maybe they got some pictures for us and kind of give us some overview of it. Jonathan?
Sure. So again, these are the numbers from when this was last reviewed in 2017. But at the time that we had done that, we were projecting a gross revenue to the city of about 12.1 million. As you can tell, this is the old version of the report that we used to do to Alderwoman Spencer's chagrin. It still has the stars on it. But the city portion of the incentive was about 6.4 million. We were subtracting about 4.5 million off from substitution effect to give net revenue of 1.1 to 1.2 million. The baseline is very low at only 24,000. So the net new revenue to the city was estimated at 1.1 million over the first 10 years of the project life, and about 1.3 million to the school district of net new revenue. So it got a 4-star, 4 out of 5 rating. So if you guys have any questions, happy to try and answer them.
Okay, and then why don't the developer, if they have, if someone wants to speak for the development team that gives us an overview, the uses, the components of the project, if they have any pictures or anything to share with us.
Hi, this is Mike Sermsaki. Good morning, everybody. Before I start, I wanted to thank a list of people. Mayor Lida Krausen, Alderwoman Hubbard. I have a long list. So Deputy Mayor for Development, Linda Martinez. SLDC team, Otis Williams. Carpenters Union Alban, who worked tirelessly with us for the last 9 months, trying to work out an agreement between us, the developer, and the union. Tim Novak, World Trade Center, St. Louis, Rodney Krim. I also want to thank one of our advisors, Tom Halsman. He was the ex-CEO of American General Contractors. They really worked tirelessly. David Richardson and Dave Sweeney. I cannot forget our lawyers, of course. Kawama Builders, Tony Thompson, and the community and business owners in our district. They've been really helpful. I think our commitment has not changed to the project. As a matter of fact, Emre Terazi, our partner, has been living patiently in St. Louis so that the project starts, and he's going to be actually our man on the ground, and he's been there patiently waiting. As many of you know, the project now, we worked our agreements between us and the unions, so we're very happy and we're thrilled about that. And the capital markets are very challenging, and for that we are engaging Crashman from St. Louis. They actually did about 90% of the HUD loans in St. Louis, so we are using them as our loan and financial advisors for the project. The project is not changing. It's staying the way it is. We again have the commercial space on the ground, same mix. We're making the hotel rooms flexible. What I mean by that, we're adding kitchenettes in the hotel rooms just in case we want to make it into an extended product or some other product type. But that's the game plan. So was I able to answer the question that was posed?
If I can add in, Mr. Chairman, so currently in their model, there'll be in building 1, there'll be 235 units, And in building 2, there'll be 225 units. It's 29,757 square feet of ground floor commercial space with a banquet space. And so, and future hotel uses will be a conversion of residential units. So basically the model that they've had several years ago, it hasn't changed. And I think it's just a blessing when we can see in our city with so much stuff happening in our city, when we can see over 400 residential units in place. So I am very proud of that. And Alderman Coder, if you need some additional details, I'm sure that they can offer them to you as well.
Alderman Coder, any other?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure if I was recognized. So, all right, I want to make sure I got this straight. So it's about half apartments, half hotels. Is that right?
Yes, and then the hotel rooms gonna have kitchens when the product comes to the market, Alderman. And if the market is not there for the hotel, then I could make it into studios basically.
Got it. Okay. And do you have is there a flag contemplated for the hotel at this point?
Yes, we from day one we have good relationship with the Marriott. It could be Marriott AC. We have we already have a signed agreement with Marriott AC a couple years back. But they are really flexible with us. We're very flexible with them, depending on the market conditions. As you know, hospitality industry is having its own challenges. And we do have some of our own products in Dallas. It's very challenging right now. So they are flexible with us and we are flexible with them. If the market is not there, it'll be studios. And if the market is there, we'll move on with the hotel. But we'll see how that plays out.
Right. No, I certainly understand that. And then, Jonathan, if maybe you could scroll up. I'm looking at the sources. So you obviously are contemplating, do you already have those state and federal historic tax allocations? I'm assuming so, given the age of this project.
Yes, we do. And all these things have been awarded to us a long time ago. We work really hard for them. And again, David Richardson has been great working with us, and it's all secured, and we're in the queue, and it's all signed.
Great. And then I guess my last question, and then I have a comment, is I think you mentioned this and I missed it, but who's your lender on that permanent loan, the $46 million loan? I'm sure that number's changed.
We're going after 221D4, which is a HUD loan, right? And then we're using Gershman, which is a St. Louis company, and they actually helped other developers like us. 90% of the development projects, HUD loans in downtown St. Louis, are basically facilitated by Gershman Group. So we have a very good partner.
Okay, thank you. I would just add that I know this project's been slow going. That often happens in your industry. I hope to see this thing. I hope this comes to fruition. It's obviously a very big and important building downtown, and I think having it redeveloped would be a great boon for downtown and for the rest of the city. So I hope this is a success, and I hope you guys will adhere to all of our requirements for prevailing wage and minority participation and everything else as you've agreed to do so. So I'll be voting in support. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the HUDZ committee. I have a couple of questions for the developer here. I know this project has been fairly controversial. And I know this has been going on for a long time. Just some simple housekeeping issues. Have the taxes been paid? I know that was an ongoing issue. Whether or not the city's been made whole so far for some of the back taxes that are still on the table. Has that been resolved?
Yes. So to answer to that question, the bill actually stipulates that for the execution, I have to pay the taxes, to real estate taxes. Yes, they'll be paid as we're executing. It's in the bill. I guess
my question is, if they're paid now, so if I understand you correctly, they will only get paid if this bill gets executed, or are they up to date as of right now?
They are not up to date as of right now. Regardless from the bill, I have to pay the real estate taxes, Alderwoman. So no matter what, I have to pay them.
But as we're considering extending these deadlines for you, the real estate taxes are currently in arrears. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yes, Alderwoman.
Can you help me understand why you're requesting an extension, but you still are in arrears with the city?
Right. So I think the question is the chicken or the eggs, because we had spent so much money on other areas, and especially with our consultants, engineers, millions of dollars.
Mm-hmm.
And now we are getting ready to pay the taxes. 2018 is the first one we're going to pay. 2019 is the next, and 2020 is afterwards. So it is not a demand from us or anything like that. I don't want you to. We have all the intentions of paying, and the bill stipulates that. That's all.
Okay. With all due respect, I mean, on smaller developments, my has developments that are much smaller, but I always require that the developers are up to taxes before I consider, engaging in any kind of incentive package. And I would hope that the taxes would be paid, before considering an extension of deadlines. I will also inquire of you if the financing has been set. I know that's been an ongoing issue as well. And if we have financing in order to move forward at this point.
As I had mentioned, Alderwoman, we are engaging Gershman as our consultants, and financing right now is extremely challenging. It was challenging for St. Louis similar projects of large magnitude, and with the COVID-19, it's even more challenging. But luckily, we have one of the premier local partners, Gershman, and I'm confident that they're gonna secure the financing for us. But let me repeat this again: development is not a very straightforward. We always wish. We're very optimistic. We worked on it for very long time, as we have agreements with our union friends. But it is very challenging right now to get financing for a project of any magnitude, especially a large one. But we're very lucky that we have Gershman, and we are going to go after hot financing to 21D4, and that's the best alternative right now. The capital markets are very tricky at the moment. There is not a whole lot of projects being financed except the hot product, and that's what we're going after.
But just for clarity, neither the taxes have been paid nor is the financing lined up at this point. So you mentioned the unions. Have all unions gotten on board and been involved in the discussions at this point and are supportive of the project as it is before us today?
Al Bond from Carpenters Union, he's been instrumental in that, and he's coordinating all that effort. Yes, Alderwoman.
The Carpenters Union is one union. I'm just speaking more broadly about unions in a more general sense.
Yes.
The workers who will actually be working on this project.
Right. So the project is 100% union, and in the bill it talks about this project being prevailing wages, which is 100% union, and our friend Al Bond, he's coordinating with all the other unions. I don't have the details, but because the project is 100% prevailing wages, as stipulated in the bill, it'll be 100% union.
Okay, I appreciate your responses today. I have no further questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just along the similar lines of fleshing out as much information around the capital stacks, are you in conversation with historic tax credit investors at the moment as well? As that's probably a pretty critical part of your capital stack.
Yes, we already have been in contact with a company of Berkshire Hathaway, Affordable Housing Partners, for a very long time. We
Good.
actually work with them in our other projects prior. So they are very eager to come in for all these years. I mean, I talk to them regularly, at least once a month, and we have them very excited about the opportunity.
Yeah, they do a good job in that space. I'm glad to hear that they're interested. Excellent.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, I don't have any further questions other than maybe just a quick statement to the Alderwoman from the 5th. A lot of uncertainty always exists in development, particularly a development project of this magnitude. And this is a very important project that we need to underscore. So I want to just applaud you, Alderwoman, for sticking with this and having patience and, getting, the perception sometimes of this project, I think gets over sensationalized. It is important. I think it is important we hold everyone's feet to the fire. And I just want to let you know that I commend you in how you're, reacting and how you're handling this situation. This is an important project for St. Louis, is what I would say to my colleagues. Additionally, I think if there are any, issues regarding taxes and whatnot, there wouldn't be a redevelopment agreement. So there would be a violation of said agreement. So I think we're all sitting down at the table in good faith to say this redevelopment agreement unlikely doesn't get executed if the taxes aren't paid in full. So I have no problem moving forward under that premise, which is the same that we would move forward under any redevelopment agreement and any incentive. So good luck. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. Alderwoman Boyd.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I don't have any questions for the sponsor, and I don't have any, I just have comments because as I've been down here these last 4 years, and on this HUD committee, I have learned a lot. And so one thing I think people need to understand as older people, we go through a lot of HE hockey sticks to make sure that we get projects going in our areas, especially areas that have been underdeveloped for years. And so I applaud the Alderwoman from the 5th because she has been determined to make sure her community is serviced. And she has dealt with a lot of obstacles that stops her in regards to a lot of projects that she puts out there. But I'm proud because she continuously keeps focusing on her constituents, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. So I just thank you for being consistent. And people need to understand when you point a finger, you got 4 pointing back at you. So just be careful because you never know when you'll get in those situations and you have to fight for your community to that multitude and keep making sure that they're taken care of. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alderman.
That concludes our committee members. I got an email from Alderman Gunther that he had some questions. If there's any other non-committee members that have questions, certainly feel free to either email me or try to wave or something and get our attention here. I'm hard to see everybody, but Alderman Gunther is recognized for questions at this time.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Am I heard?
Yes, we're hearing you.
Okay, good. Yeah, so a handful of my questions were addressed by the Alderwoman from the 20th. I think there's a lot of concern. I've just have been doing a little bit of research about this because we've all have been hearing about the Jefferson Arms project for 4+ years right now. And I guess I will ask really quick for the developers. You started off by, thanking Mayor Cruzen and our economic development team. However, just looking at this past March of 2020, a story that was written about this project where the Board of E&A, Board of Estimates and Apportionment, basically unanimously declined an extension on this project, with the mayor calling the ask for an extension inappropriate, and our president of the Board of Aldermen quoting that he's not in favor. It's a very strong no from him about the extension. So I guess for the developers, the work that's been done between March and now, do you have the full support of the Board of E&A on this project now, including the comptroller?
Right.
Mike,
I cannot answer.
Mike, let me answer first real quick.
Okay. All right.
If I may, Mr. Chairman or Alderman Gunther.
Go right ahead.
Okay, thank you. Also in that article, I believe it was also said that the bill should come back to the Board of Aldermen. And so that's what we're doing. Is that correct, Alderman Gunther? Was that a quote in there?
It just says that they need to start the process over.
Yep, and that's what we're doing, Alderman. And so we're before the Alderman. And in that time, as you're well aware, as we've discussed, there's been an agreement with the Carpenters Union, and with an agreement of 100% union, not just carpenters, but all unions. And we'll continue to have those conversations and to go forward. So I just wanted to cover that piece, and I'll let Mike speak. So thank you for that.
And this is Dave Richardson, if I could just chime in. So legally speaking, the Board of Estimate and Apportionment did not have the ability or power to amend this redevelopment agreement. And so that's why, and I think that's what Mayor Krusman was referring to. We did not ask for it to be on E&A. It was a miscommunication, but because legally speaking, the Board of Aldermen needs to do amendments to redevelopment agreements, not the Board of Estimate and Apportionment.
Okay, thank you for that. And then I guess, it's been brought up a couple times of 100% union and the statement about the Carpenters Union and Al Bond being in support of it, as was brought up by the Alderwoman from the 20th, that the Carpenters are just one piece of the larger union scene in St. Louis. So I think I personally would like to see, agreements with the other unions. We have we're a very strong union city, and a lot of the backlash from this project over the last few years has been the conversations about bringing out-of-state workers, as well as hiring the contractor that is not locally based. So I think having documentation not only from the Carpenters and Al Bond, but from the general union scene in St. Louis, saying that this is a project that they now get on board with however that is that you guys are creating those agreements, I think would be helpful. And then I guess also for the contractor, you say you are now working with a local general contractor, whereas this article from March says that you had chosen a group called GHJ out of California. Are you no longer working with GHJ, which according to this is a Chinese government-owned construction firm? Are you now working with a local general contractor as well?
Well, I think I was talking about Gershman, and Gershman is a local loan coordinator facilitator. So Gershman is not a general contractor. Gershman is the group that they're gonna help us to obtain.
Yeah, I got that for finance.
I have not talked about. Furthermore, coming back to your questions about other unions, it is 100% union and it is 100% prevailing wage. So or HUD loan that we would like to secure 221D4 is also prevailing wage, which translates into union. So everything that I have to do, it requires us to do 100% union. Now, Al Bond has been instrumental in coordinating with all the different unions. We already have an agreement with Al Bond, and we're hoping, and we should have other agreements with the coming unions, but that's really already baked into the deal. It's 100% union, and it says so in the bill. And the loan that we're gonna we receive from HUD 221D4 is also that. That requires the prevailing wages, which translates into unions basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I understand the Gershman you're talking about for the financing part. My question was for your general contractor. Are you still working with GHJ as your main contractor?
We are working with different contractors.
different contractors, does that mean you are working with GHJ or?
We have some local contractors we're working with, and I don't want to like mention names right now, but we are working with some local contractors also, and we have been working with local subcontractors.
Local subs, okay.
Local contractors, local GCs as well.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess I still have a lot of concerns about this as well. You know, I do understand that you're working with Albon and the Carpenters Union. I would say there's a handful of us at the Board of Aldermen that have been at odds with the Carpenters Union over a couple of issues over the last year, including airport. So that's why I would like to see some support from other unions as well. So
yes, we've been talking with them also. So we actually meet them, and we are progressing. But Albon has been. I mean, I understand you might have some challenges with Albon, but he's been helpful to us in bringing other unions to the table and having them talk to us. So and again, the project is 100% union. It stipulates that in the TIF agreement, and if I do not adhere to the TIF agreement, I would not get the incentives at the conclusion of the construction. So I have to adhere to what's stipulated in the bill, which is 100% union and women participation, local labor requirements. So if I do not do those, I will not get the incentive, and I will get the incentive after I finish construction, probably about a year after I finish construction. I'm not going to get any money up front. I'm not going to get any money at the conclusion of the construction, right? They have to verify that I did everything that's stipulated in the bill. And then after that, I will get that tax increment financing instrument issued to us. So I just wanted to put it out there, and hopefully you'll be at ease, because City of St. Louis, I think, does a tremendous job making sure that a developer like ourselves adhere to the what's stipulated in the bill, and we're going to work hand in hand with City of St. Louis departments and Kawame Builders. Tony Thompson, he's going to be an instrumental component of the team, making sure that there is no miss, there is no hiccups on our part. We want to get this built. That's the bottom line. And I appreciate Alderwoman Hubbard for being very patient with us, and Mayor Leader Krausen. They've been great, and they've been very patient. And we've invested a lot of time, a lot of energy, a lot of money. And I think the fact that one of my partners, Emre Terazi, moved to St. Louis, and he's been patiently living there for 3 years. I think we love St. Louis. We want to be part of the community, and we're doing it. So hopefully we're going to get this thing built, and it's going to be a product that we all can be proud of.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, for the opportunity to ask a few questions. And that's all I have for now.
Okay, we have other members of the board that are not on the committee. I don't, I guess they can raise their hand here. I'm not very good at this. If anybody's interested that's not on the committee, that have any questions. I don't see anybody raising their hand or anything. If I'm missing something, let me know.
Mr. Chairman, may I come back for just clarification on a couple of things?
Sure, Alderwoman.
Thank you very much. I'm glad that the questions were asked, because it gives us an opportunity to clarify some things even further. The first thing was the Board of E&A. They do not have the power to do what was suggested or asked of them by some entities that had concern. But what did happen was that the president of the Board of Aldermen, he wanted to make sure that the concerns were heard. And he did try to put it on the agenda. But as the mayor and others clarified, it wasn't something that they could vote on, but what they could do is discuss it. And so that brought the attention to the concerns that were there. And it took the conversation even further to help the Alderwoman from the 5th make sure that those things were addressed properly, mainly dealing with the unions. And so that's what that was all about. And I don't think a lot of people understood that that power was not there at the Board of E&A. But as we move forward, we do have a bill now that has all of the stipulations in there in order not only to get incentives, but it's very clear that there will be no building permits issued if the taxes are not paid. There will be nothing done as far as moving that project forward until the taxes are paid. There's no if, and, or buts about that. And so I think all that's pretty clear in this bill, that all measures must be met. And I appreciate those who constructed this bill to make it very clear to the developer that these things must be met. So I have no issues at this point, knowing that those things are there, and also knowing that we always have a lot of eyes and ears on projects like this that have had a lot of public scrutiny. And you do have one of the best entities to monitor this process with Kwame. They've gotten a lot of clarity for us on big projects over the year, made sure that minority participation was met, and there was fairness in hiring of city residents. Those things are critical, and I appreciate it being in the bill. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I have follow-up questions if it's okay.
Yes, so Alderman, proceed.
Mr. Chairman, I would ask if the Alderman from the 9th Ward would yield for me to ask him some questions.
Alderman from the 9th, or are you?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't really think that's pertinent to this discussion.
Okay.
Jeffrey or Alderman Boyd, you're welcome to call me.
Okay, well, I'm going to put this on the record, and I guess I'm feeling like the Alderman from the 9th Ward has some concerns about maybe a union has some concerns. I mean, the Alderman from the 5th was clear this is an all-union project. The developer was clear that this is an all-union project, and if we don't have any unions signed up today to speak in opposition of this, I'm not sure what the point is. And if there is a union that has opposition, I will hope that the 9th Ward Alderman would speak to that. So that's, what I want to ask him, but that's quite okay that he didn't yield. But I also would say, the comment about, well, the carpenters, was for privatization of the airport, that comment lend itself to saying that the carpenters don't have a lot of credibility. And so maybe we're not interested in a project that the carpenters are part of. Well, here's the reality. We don't get to pick contractors for the developer. We shouldn't be that heavy-handed. I think there's a little more respect that should be given to our colleagues when we're sponsoring development bills. I'm not speaking for the Alderman from the 5th, but I know if it was my bill, I would, have some real issues with some of the stuff that's coming up. Because we as aldermen, we work diligently. We work very hard with the development team, with owners, to try to come up with a win-win strategy that works for the developer investing in our community, and that works from the city of St. Louis as a whole. And I wasn't excited about Proposition D and all the people that supported Proposition D, but I'm not going to refuse to work with any of my colleagues that were very supportive of that. I'm not going to be demeaning in any way, publicly about any of my colleagues that supported that, which I think is going to be a great disaster. So I just want to say we should be a little mindful and more courteous to our colleagues when they're working hard, spending hours that we don't get a chance to spend because it comes before the committee and we ask, several questions, but we don't get to dictate. That's very offensive to me, and it's not my bill, who a contractor consults with or hires to do their project. So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to be on record with that. I just think that's very appalling. I hope this is not the type of journey that we're going to expect more of at the Board of Aldermen, because if it is, there's going to be a lot of issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman. I have not seen where any of the non-committee members had any questions. If there's no other questions from members of the committee, no speakers, then we're that feel a need to be recognized. We're ready for a motion. If there's someone who'd like to make a motion at this time.
Oh, I forgot. I can't make the motion. I sit on the committee. I move for passage of Board Bill 178.
Second.
Been moved by the Alderwoman from the 5th, seconded by the Alderman from the 22nd. No further discussion. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd.
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard.
Aye.
Alderman Coder.
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer.
No.
Alderman Oldenburg.
Aye.
Alderwoman Boyd.
I'm sorry. Aye.
Stop. Chairman Rhodey.
Aye.
7 aye votes and 1 no vote.
By our vote, we've passed out of the committee Board Bill number 178 with a do pass recommendation. Last item on today's agenda is Resolution 82, sponsored by, I believe Alderman Kodar is going to speak on behalf of the President on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Try to keep this short. And I know Doug Rasmussen, who's representing the owner of the buildings here as well. To set this up for context, the building we're talking about here today, and this is a resolution for a 10-year abatement at 95%, simply of the improvements made going forward for this building. So the building in discussion is the Globe Democrat building on Tucker. I'm sure you're all familiar with it. It's a big building, used to house one of our two, I think, was that a daily paper? That's before my time, but I think it was a daily paper. Very cool, big, massive space. So currently the building's about 550,000 square feet. It's a big old building. Good bones. So the owners of the building in the last few years have, in an effort to try to make this, an attractive place for tech companies to move, have made substantial investments in the building's power and internet capabilities. The building currently houses a number of data centers and I know some AT&T switching components as well. And that's mainly because it's such a reliable building, because it's got multiple redundancies in its power supply and also in its fiber optic internet. So what the owners are hoping to do is make this a building that's very attractive to specifically geospatial companies. Basically, I mean, given its proximity to the new NGA sites, its proximity to the large investment that Square is making in the Post-Dispatch building, and its proximity being about a block away from T-Rex. This building is sort of an ideal spot for companies, whether they're geospatial companies looking to relocate or bring people to St. Louis as a result of NGA's expansion in north of downtown, or companies graduating from very cheap office space in T-Rex looking for their next home. We're hoping this is one of the buildings they'll consider. This building would have been very much on the news. I don't know if any of you saw that. I'm sure you did. The setbacks it faced in June of this year during the protests and the civil unrest that occurred downtown on June 1st, this building suffered a tremendous amount of damage, approximately $4 million in damage. All the first floor retail tenants, those spaces were looted and burned extensively. I mean, obviously there's insurance proceeds for some of that, but it was a major setback for this building. And part of what we're hoping to do today is to show, not only the Globe Democrat building, but other buildings downtown that, frankly, their commercial occupancy is going to suffer greatly as a result of this pandemic, that, if they're willing to make future investments to attract tenants in these buildings going forward, the city will be a partner in that and willing to help. So what we're seeking to do here is to basically provide some incentive to basically freeze the taxes on some of the improvements going forward. And Doug can correct me, or someone from SLDC, but I believe this building pays already close to $250,000 a year in commercial and property taxes to the city. And that's based on, very recent reassessments. Now they want to invest about $34 million more dollars in improvements in this building going forward, which was obviously could substantially increase the building's valuation, but really makes it untenable to then lease space at the going rates downtown, which is around $15 a square foot. So we're trying to help get this building in a position where we can improve it, fill it up, and also keep it commercially viable. And that's the purpose of this enhanced enterprise zone abatement. With that, I'll turn it over to Doug if he has anything else to add. I would note, just before I do that, we're going to be looking at something similar for another downtown building in the coming weeks. Just yesterday, it was announced, it came out of the EEZ committee, that Larson Financial, a company based in Chesterfield's moving 130 or so jobs and purchasing a building, a large skyscraper downtown, and we'll be looking at sort of a similar structure to basically abate future improvements to help stabilize these buildings. With that, I'll turn it over to Doug for anything else he has to add.
Thank you, Alderman Coder. I appreciate it. Again, Doug Rasmussen. So we are, as the Alderman said, we are looking at, just abatement on the new value created over and above the last time this was assessed, and it would be a 95% abatement for these improvements. The one thing I would add, based over and above what Alderman Coder had mentioned, was our client actually, with successful passage of this legislation and this resolution, would be starting a 25,000 square foot speculative space for development, and that would be about a $2 million expenditure right off the bat, and that would be the initial thrust, and then the rest of the project would happen over a 5 to 7 year period. And the idea is that again, the abatement would apply to these new government tenants, many of whom are on short-term leases, 3 to 5 year leases, but they have very high finish, high build out space. Also, they tend to be more dense users. They've got a few of these that have located in the building. They're at about a 5 per 1,000 square feet in terms of density, and so there's a significant, we think, jobs play here as well after the COVID pandemic is over, and it's high tech office, and we feel like this is with the city's support, it's an asset that can reinvigorate downtown, help connect Washington Avenue to the Square campus, and do just a lot of great things for the downtown district. So we appreciate your support and look forward to your questions.
Jonathan or someone from SLDC, do they want to walk us through the financials for this then?
Yep. Sorry, I was trying to get the screen shared there. Is everyone seeing the Globe Building Financial Impact Report now?
Yes.
Okay. So, yeah, so this project, I mean, as you can see just from the graph here, it, once it, takes a little couple years to get up there, but it does get above sort of our sustainable revenue target and stays above that level based on the projections that we're seeing for the number of jobs that could be fit into this space. The score overall is 3.75 out of 5. It will generate almost $9.5 million to the city over 10 years over the existing base. Over 20 years, that would be about $21 million. The school district would get about $458,000 over the existing base over 10 years, and that would be almost $4.7 million over 20 years. Relative to the neighborhood average, sort of this is a cumulative running level. It doesn't quite hit the neighborhood average over 10 years. It doesn't catch up, I should say, from the first years where it's behind. Over that 10-year period, it's still behind by 1.2 million, but over 20 years, it will not only make up that deficit, but it will then go to exceed the neighborhood average by $2 million over the duration of 20 years. Similar situation for the school district, where it's behind by $59,000 by the end of year 10, but by the end of year 20, it catches up and exceeds by almost $500,000. The value of the incentive is estimated at a little under $3.1 million. It's a percent of project cost is about 6.8%. And so I will entertain any questions if you have any.
Want to go through the committee? Alderman Boyd, any questions?
No questions, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Alderwoman Davis.
I don't have any questions unless the comment that I make needs to be clarified. On this incentive, it's only for the renovations going forward, but they will still be paying the current tax base. And
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah, that's correct.
Because a lot of what has been told to the public and or wanting the public to believe is that in a tax abatement, no taxes are paid. I just wanted to make sure that people understood as we talk about these projects where they are. And a lot of them are very different in their composition, but if you are paying taxes, you will continue to pay those taxes. The tax base is not erased. It's always on future or new. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can add a comment on that if you, just for clarification. So I include on these reports what the tax abatement type is. In this case, it's a Chapter 99. There's basically 3 different types. There's 99, 100, and 353. On Chapter 99, it essentially maintains the existing assessment on the improvements and on the land value. And so they'll continue paying the taxes on both of those. And in fact, if there is a natural sort of increase in the assessed value on those existing improvements, they're not actually abated. So even if it was 100% abatement, those taxes could still go up on the existing improvements. Whereas 353 and Chapter 100 offer the ability to essentially freeze the existing improvements, but not the existing land value. So the land value can still go up, but the improvements can be frozen in place. I would say well over 95% of the projects that we do are Chapter 99s. We do very few 353s. In fact, you generally know what they are. They're usually in the larger, 353 setups that we have, like the SLU one. And Chapter 100 is generally reserved for industrial manufacturing projects like we had earlier this morning.
Alderwoman Hubbard, any questions? Alderwoman Hubbard. Is Alderwoman Hubbard present?
I think she had to jump for another meeting, Chairman.
Okay. Alderman Codar.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Spencer. Alderwoman Spencer. Okay. Alderman Oldenburg.
I have no questions.
Alderwoman Boyd. Alderwoman Boyd.
I have no questions.
Okay. Is there anyone else not on the committee that has questions? Let me see. I don't see anybody. Okay. Doesn't look like we have any questions from non-committee members. Speakers, Doug has spoken. Okay, if there are no other questions or comments, the chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we adopt Resolution 82 with the due pass recommendation.
Second.
Been moved by the Alderman from the 7th, seconded by the Alderwoman from the 19th. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Alderman Boyd,
Aye.
Alderwoman Davis,
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard, Alderman Coder,
Aye.
Alderwoman Spencer, Alderman Oldenburg, Alderwoman Boyd.
I'm an aye. I'm sorry. Oldenburg's an aye.
Thank you. Alderwoman Boyd.
Aye.
Chairman Rhodey.
Aye.
Alderwoman Hubbard. Alderwoman Spencer. 6 aye votes.
By your vote, you have sustained the motion of the Alderman from the 7th. Resolution 82 is passed out of committee with a due pass recommendation. I believe that concludes today's business and our last meeting of the year. So happy holidays to everyone, and look forward to seeing you all next year. Thanks.
All right, have a good one.
Thank you.